Right, yeah, this new tune called Model Collapse. It's coming out with Fabric. And it differs in the last two I've shown in that there's no sample breakbeats in it. The drums are done from scratch. It's just generally less sample based all round. I got more involved in like the sound design side of synthesis rather than chopping beats. The beats are straighter, it's more tonal. The start of it is like a kind of riding off this acid line, which is a 101 emulation. And that's just a square wave on a little 3-note pattern that's sort of running across the beats, syncopated across the beats. And it's got a kind of squelchy filter setting to give it like a 303 kind of feel. And that's just sort of building up throughout that intro. And then I've also got these pads that are another emulation. And I've got the oscillators tuned out of tune, basically. So there's 2 oscillators on this, and one is tuned 4.5 semitones out. So if I play a note, it sounds out of tune with itself. But it just gives it a slightly... There's a tension there that I like. That's the meat of the intro, which then builds up into this, where the filter on the acid synth has opened up quite a bit. And I've brought the whole of the drums in. So the snare is actually a synthesizer. It's called Exquisite by Chair Audio. I don't know anyone else that's used it. To be honest, whenever I mention it to anyone, no one's ever even heard of it. But it's an amazing sounding snare synth. It only does snares, but it's really realistic sounding, and you can get a load of like tonal variation out of it. I've resampled it here, but I've resampled loads of different hits, so I can get sort of you know, realistic sounding flams and that sort of thing. I think that's underused. It's an overlooked bit of kit, that, and then the snare, the kick, I think, again, I've resampled it with a few different hits. I think this was from Addictive Drums or something like that, from a drum library. But most of what's going on with the drums is with the snare, with the ride, sorry. This is multi-sample site like rides. So someone's recorded a ride, hit it in loads of different positions, and each hit has got a slightly different tone to it. Rather than just having one straight ride sample, it sounds quite robotic. I found like to get drums to sound the way I want, I have to kind of think like a real drummer and play drums like a real drummer. So instead of just having one straight ride as like a drum machine would play it, there's loads of different tonal variation in the ride, even though the snare's maybe not doing that much. And then I've also introduced a sort of unison effect that I built in Reactor. But basically, it's like a granular pitch shifter, but it multiplies the sound like 3-4 times, spreads it in pitch, and it just gives you that sort of metallic quality. I've just spent a lot of time this year just playing with processing and trying to get sounds that I haven't used before, basically. And that was one of the things I ended up with. So yeah, that builds up. Like a white noise sting going into the drop, and then it drops into this bass line, which again, not massively complicated, 3 notes. That's probably, I think you probably say that's chromatic. It's not easy to put into a key signature, that. That's FM8. And it's just 2, is it? Oh no, okay. What I've done here, I've got a sub, just playing a flat sine wave, and then 2 operators, one being modulated at ratio 6:1. If you're into FM synthesis, you can try that out. And there's an LFO on that, which is what's giving it the kind of the wavering quality. And the LFO controls the amount of modulation one operator is giving the other. So that's how you get that movement. But it does alternate between that and just a flat, straight sine wave. Well, I've got slightly wave shaped just to give a little bit more extra harmonics. And then again, it's call and response. So like the bass line does one line, settles, and then it's answered by this sort of blaring siren noise, which I've resampled. That's from an FM synth. I couldn't remember what I did there. There's a few oscillators involved. It's just quite distorted. Okay, maybe not that complicated, but there's probably two or three operators there modulating, nothing particular going on. It's just like to create a tone, and then distorted to create a sort of, there's barely a pitch to it. But you put there's a pitch envelope on it, and it's sort of acting like a siren, I suppose, more than an instrument. And I think with the bass line, there's a switch up here. And this is quite interesting. I use an FM synth again here, and something FM allows you to do is it like introduces like weird stacks of harmonics. So this has got quite a weird readout. There's again, it's quite hard to discern a tone from it, but because there's quite a lot of, there's a stack of harmonics in it, you can play notes that go way below what a sound system could reproduce. But there's still some content there. You play that on a loud sound system, it sounds pretty mad. So that's quite a fun thing to play with. Like if you're just playing unreasonably low notes on an FM synth, definitely worth playing around with. And again, a lot of the movements just come from the ride cymbal. And I think yeah, and here I've used the comb filter trick just on the individual drum sample. And this is randomized, so again, it's one sample, but it's an attempt to try and bring about the variation I was talking about that a real drummer would have on a real cymbal, but in a synthetic way. So a lot of this is just, yeah, very like minute details into just getting slight movement out of like a simple loop. And the second section's just all variations on the bass line. Again, a lot of call and response. It starts to go to these lower notes I was talking about. So the bass line plays, and then this weird metallic tone kind of answers the bass line. And I've used a lot of like renoise key commands here to sort of shape the sound. So instead of synthesizing it, I can tell the sequencer to go change the volume and turn the pitch up. And again, that's another little bonus of trackers is you've got control. You can have a flat static sample and you've got control of it in the sequencer. So as you think of an idea, you can do it all in the same page, which is quite useful. And then the second section just drops into sub version of bass line. And this tune, I kind of thought a little bit more about how it might work in a mix. This section's, you know, there's plenty of space in there and you can start teasing in another tune, and it's quite nice for layering. Ones with a million breaks that are chopping it, it's quite hard to kind of blend a tune sometimes. So you end up different mixing styles. So it's cool to write something that you can mix a little bit differently. Right, yeah, that's the crux of that tune, I'd say, yeah.